Thank you so much, everyone. Well, if you're those who, if you have been writing exams recently, or you remember the days when you write examination and you hear pencils up, you know that you are just at a time when the clock is telling you your time is over. Well, that looks to me like what happened today, just at the nick of time. It was almost pencil up for President Tinubu when the Chief of Staff to the President, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, today presented President Tinubu's ministerial list before the Senate. Mr. Gbajabiamila, the past Speaker of the House of Representatives, presented the list to the Senate President because we are probably at about 1:19 p.m. today. Mr. Fabio, the Senate President, said the list was dated the 27th of July, 2023, entitled Request for Confirmation of Ministerial Nominees. But this is what we know. We now know 28 people make up that list of what could be referred to as the batch A of the ministerial nominees, as presented by President, transmitted by the President today. Some of the prominent faces on the list include the former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, former governor of Ebonyi State, Dave Umahi, former governor of Jigawa State, Abubakar Bagudu, and some of those who are also prominent that you may be able to point out are two sitting lawmakers, Honorable Tunji Ojo from the House, representing Ondo State on that list, and Senator Dave Umahi from Ebonyi State, a sitting lawmaker and a former governor. Mr. Dele Alake, a longtime ally of President Tinubu, makes the list. Mr. Wale Edo also makes the list. And interestingly, there is the name of Mr. Adebayo Adelabu from Ogun State making the list, a former minister who will be returning from an international duty. Mr. Party representing Bauchi also is on the list. Senator Ena is also on that list. There is a long list of 28 people on that list, which includes 25% of women, and the rest are men. Well, out of the list also are two sitting National Working Committee members of the APC, Senator Abubakar Kyari and Mrs. Betta Edu, who is the national women leader of the APC. Both of them are on that list. We'll be breaking it down further for you. But let's get into analyzing what this is all means altogether, whether or not this is a kind of list you as a Nigerian is expecting. The APC has promised that we will get quality in person, character, and expertise of the people who will make up the cabinet tonight. A former Minister for National Planning, who is the Director General of the Nigerian Institute of Legal Research Studies, Professor Abubakar Suleiman, joins us live in the studio. It's good to see you. Thank you so much, indeed, for coming.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I don't know how you receive on a day like this. I remember when your name representing Kwara State at the time on the cabinet. There's been a lot of jostling, no doubt. Political permutations. A lot of the versions of these lists have come on the internet and gone. But now we are for certain 28 names out of the possible 36 states, because the law, the constitution, it says every state has to be represented. Give us your a summary of your view about what the president presented today.
Thank you very much. I think it was a long-awaited list, and as Surali said, the Constitution mandated Mr. President, to establish an office of ministers, and that each state shall, be represented in the cabinet. So what Mr. President has done today, I think, is in conformity with the constitutional provisions. One, people are expecting that maybe perhaps we'll not get the list today. Thank God we're able to get the list. But one thing that I think we should bear in mind as Nigerians is that, you see, cabinet ministers or cabinet members is key to the direction of any government. when you are in a hurry to constitute, you may find yourself in serious problem. Mr. President came with a vision. He came with a 10-point agenda of how to move the country forward. He came with a vision to address insecurity, to address the economy, to address, the issue of non-inclusions, to address a lot of crises facing this country. And for him to get this thing done, he needs lieutenants, he needs policymakers, he needs advisors that will key into his vision, that will key into his agenda. And perhaps in doing that, he must take his time to constitute. He must take his time, weigh the options, and bring this a lot of pressures, a lot of contestations, a lot of consideration, a lot of variables comes in determining who comes. Who should I pick? Who should I pick? It's not just for Bola Ahmed Tinubu to just say, I want, Sinwo Kimbaloye from Kwara to be minister. He must consider certain variables, where you are coming from, the forces, the security apparatus must come in to scrutinize you. You must have to look at your pedigree. So what I've seen today is a blend of technocrats with politicians. It's a blend of people that have really worked for APC, that have really worked for the man to assume leadership of this country. And to a large extent, I think from my own view, let us look at the issue of inclusion. How many women? 7 out of 28.
28, yeah.
25%, I think that's not too bad enough. That's good enough.
Considering the fact that we still have 11 states left out, possibly going to 42 out of 28.
Then secondly, you look at the former governors. The like of Wike from Rivers State was former...
Did you see that coming?
I saw it coming, of course.
A PDP member, although, it's obvious that it looked like he worked and he didn't hide it.
When you talk about reward system, when you talk about patronage, when you talk about inclusion, when you talk about pedigree, to a large extent, I think, which we expected. He worked for the party. He did so much for the party. And give it to him in terms of, pedigree, in terms of accomplishment in the state, I think he did very well. Don't forget that myself and Wike and myself were part of the cabinet in 2014, 2013. So I think it's experience too will go a long way in helping Mr. President. But beyond the Wike of a thing, we talk about the lack of the technocrats. You talk of the legal gurus, the lack of Fagbemi from Kwara State.
Absolutely.
You talk of the lack of Pate, who was former minister too, and going by his accomplishment at the United Nations agencies. I think when you look at all this, then you talk about the women, you talk about
and there are very young people too on the cabinet. You talk about women.
You talk about
Stella Okotete, who's less than 40 years.
So we are looking at inclusivity. How many women? How many youths? So we have women in abundance. 25% is not too bad. Then some of them are. You talk of the Betty. Betty is less than 40 years old.
38 years old.
The Musawa, what's the name again?
Yeah, it's a young woman too.
It falls within that,
Stella Okotete, 39 years.
So I think in what we are looking for, perhaps one thing I've not seen is people with vulnerability. But in terms of inclusivity, in the areas of women, in the areas of youth, and in the areas of identifying people that are even key, that are even address, the fundamental crisis facing the country under, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I think the list, to my, mind, was in line with my expectation.
So you look at energy, capacity. Adebayo Adelabu, a former
deputy
governor of the CBN. Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo is going to be a second-term member of the House, a young man, less than 45 years of age, also in that cabinet. He comes from a private sector when he moved into politics. Stella Okotete, a former Wale Edun, Dele Alake, journalist Wale Edun, who is known for. Do you think that the right pegs and we do not know the roles the president, because that's another critical thing, getting them into the right portfolios, isn't it?
Whatever it is, as long as looking at their pedigree, they have a capacity, they have a competence. Some of them are really, they were accomplished people in the various calling before. Wherever you put them, I think they will do very well. When I was made a minister, I was made a minister of national planning. Nobody ever gave me to me that I could do what I did. But we have to look at where they're coming from. Does he have the capacity? Does he have the pedigree? Does he have the character? Does he have what it takes Does it key into the vision of Mr. President or the party? I think if you look at all the areas of these people, I think regardless of the portfolio, the selection, to my own knowledge, is very much in line.
All right. Let's look at one thing that is also the state that have been left out. There are, and I know this must have given the president a lot of headache. If you were in his shoes, perhaps a state like Kano, for example, there are a lot of people who had. In fact, we were hearing that there was a bargaining that Mr. Ganduje should get out of the cabinet so that he can go and do party things. Someone like a former governor, Kwankwanso, is being tipped to be on that kind of scenario would give some political headache. If you were in, what do you think was probably going through the head of the president?
You see, I can't speak for Mr. President and I can't speak for the party. But one thing that we need to consider is that before now, we've been asking for government of national unity. We have been talking about government of inclusivity. People have been advising him to say, go beyond partisanship. Look at perhaps other political parties that have something to offer. So if today,
Well, it doesn't look like that. It looks like everyone as being within the, either you carry PDP or APC, they look like they
what Mr. President see, you don't see it. What he see, we don't see it. You see, we can be outside there to critique, to make a statement, to say a lot of things against government of the day. But what they see in terms of, information intelligence, we don't see it. So it's not just, as simple as that to say, oh, perhaps. I think what we have seen so far, Patel was not part of APC, right? Mm-hmm. Fagbemi was not part of, it's not a card member of APC. And if today they are not bringing on board the Kwankwaso, I don't see anything wrong in that. What is important is what you can offer, what you can put on the table. As long as Kwankwaso has what it takes, to assist Mr. President in his, key agenda of getting this country on track, so it be. So, yes, we are all aware that, yes, Ganduje had to give way because he needed to attend to party matter. But again, if you had to go for 42, Ganduje wouldn't have even stopped Kwankwaso coming into the play because you can as well give what belongs to Northwest, to Kano, giving them 2 slots. Mm-hmm. So I think it's not just something we have to be in a hurry to draw a conclusion. So, but in terms of permutation, in terms of the consideration, in terms of variables, that key into the perceptions of leadership, they know what they are facing. They see what you don't see. So it's not just for us to sit down in the studio and draw a conclusion.
Yeah, and again, some of these persons, their name will have to go through some security scrutiny.
Of course.
And you might want somebody, but the person might not pass a security scrutiny.
That's another consideration. That's another variable.
Let me bring another perspective, Prof. I'm being joined by Kaode Ogunamsi, who is a political analyst. Kaode, it's good to see you. He joins us live virtually from London. I know you're one of those who have talked on the hashtag, the list, the Tinubu list. Are you disappointed or are you impressed?
Let me just put it this way. It's a fairly okay list. I think the first thing is, we're getting worried that the president that kept the ground running seems to be stalling. But when you look at this list, you just have to first look at the politicians he tried to sort of reward and the quality of those politicians. David Umahi, Nyesom Wike, Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai. And when you look at the track records of these individuals, you know that they did quite well as governors of the state. So you see that he's put a lot of thought into this list. Then the young people are on the list, the women on the list, particularly people should watch out for Natu Musawa and then Dele Alake. What you will be praying is that the president would actually put these individuals in the right portfolio. I would like to see someone like Dele Alake in formation. I would like to see Governor El-Rufai in power, in the power sector. I would like to see Wike in the Ministry of Housing and the critical sectors. Let's put these people to test to work. I think this is the first time we just need to put politics aside and just acknowledge that this percentage of the list submitted by the president, you can't see any individual that you pick out and say, okay, they are not worthy of being ministers. What I'm hoping is that the president will do away with this Minister of State position because we're in a very critical point in our country where we're spending so much on public appointees. If he can get through that and just not have a Minister of State, then we will be seeing a change in direction, really. So my initial comments are that it's a welcome list.
Well, if you look at it, 60 days for the president and his team that they said they went to Paris and they were planning. They were meeting with investors, foreign investors. Would you say 60 days? And some people would say, if it was 6, and I was reading some comments and they were very interesting comments. They said, oh, are these the people that you are putting up together for the past 60 days? You know,
that was quite... That was quite surprising because the impression this presidency gave us was that he had the plan. He had a plan. The plan is already, the blueprints are there. And you were expecting that we would be shocked by maybe 10 days after inauguration, we're just going to have the technocrats hit the ground running. That was a bit of a disappointment. I think, you remember the last administration, we thought something shocking was going to come into play, and then we had the list after, I think, about 3 or 4 months, and it was just business as usual. But you want to concede that when he was governor of Lagos, he practically presented unknowns as commissioners, and those unknowns went on to perform brilliantly. Because, and up to date, you hear those names, Fashola, Oshibajo, Aregbesola, and co. So maybe 60 days, a bit too late, but they just need, this team needs to actually keep the ground running, because right now, the president seems to be catching up. There's particularly with the monetary policy that is in place that is causing a lot of pains across the country. The needed stock that we need to put our country back on track. This team now, the president now needs to actually take the back seat and let this team start projecting his agenda and his programs to Nigerians, because time is running out. We are at the tipping point where the poor cannot breathe, and this team seems to, they need to start delivering that renewed hope, because 60 days out of 4 years is a long time. So we have the list, and let's just hope things work out. But I'm quite impressed with the quality of some of the people that are being presented to the Senate today, and I hope they do pass through. Remember, we are also quite shocked that Wike, who swore never to become a minister again, he was just going to his village to rest, is now a minister. And that is to tell you that you can never take politicians for their words, But, people have a right to change their mind and serve the country. And it will be interesting how President Tinubu is going to deal with these big characters in his cabinet.
Kaude, look at it, the breakdown. Let me show you the analysis. There are 28 names transmitted by the president. 25 states are represented. 11 out of the 36 states of the Federation, plus the FCT, are not represented just yet. Interestingly, there are 2 states that are not represented that are very linked biologically or otherwise to the president, Osun and Lagos State. They are not represented on that list. And I can imagine the kind of tussle politically and psychologically that could have been. Kano is another very critical state that may have caused some trouble or political trauma and given some headache. 4 former governors, 2 sitting federal lawmakers, Umahi, Olumumi Tunji-Ojo, 7 women, 21 men. If you look at this, what are your expectations? Plus the fact that the law says 60 days to transmit. Does the law give the president the permission to transmit on the 60-day batch A and not complete it? I don't know whether or not he's fully met the provisions of the Constitution, or whether or not he's in half breach of the Constitution as we speak.
So let's leave. You see, our Constitution has a lot of lacunas in place. You guys are the legal people, and there are lots of wiggle room for presidents and elected officials. But name those critical states: Lagos State, Osun State, Kano State. What do they have in common? the president struggled to win elections in those 3 states. You know, he really struggled in those 3 states. Kano State, and as a sitting president, with an unpopular president in terms of number of votes, probably the most unpopular in terms of the number of votes that make him president, he needs to start looking at the next election. And if he's not careful in who he brings into office, into the cabinet from Kano, from Lagos, and Osun, where the opposition PDP has a governor that seems to be popular with the people, cleared all the local government elections, cleared all the Senate seats and all the House of Reps seats. He would need to put in a lot of thought, but time is running out for him. In Kano, the power struggle between Kwakwanso and Ganduje needs to be sorted out, and I think it needs to be sorted out within the next 24 to 48 hours. But so I'm quite happy at a name that is not on the list from Kano State. It would have been very worrying for the APC to have that name. You know, not to cause any controversy, I won't mention that name. And I'm quite pleased at some names that are not on the list that I was thinking, oh my God, if this president should present these characters to the Nigerian people who are facing serious anti-corruption cases with the EFCC, then it's going to be problematic. You know, so I would think it's for political reasons that he's finding it difficult to present ministers from those states or nominees from those states. Lagos is his own base that is shaky, with Labour Party giving him a run for the money. Osun State, where the opposition PDP governor is there. And remember, his closest allies in Osun State, I think, is being pushed to become the national secretary of the APC. You know, so we just we wait and see what the strategy the president is going to come up with in delivering nominees from those states.
Mm-hmm. Let's wrap this up. Let me come back to Prof. The coming days are going to be very interesting. Labour is threatening to go on strike. Resident doctors are threatening. It does look like the president needs the team to be put together ASAP. The Senate cannot go on break because they have to sit on this list and confirm or not confirm. Because all of these names, they might decide not to confirm some of them, but I don't see the Senate actually not confirming any person on that list that's sent by the president. You politically, you know how this thing plays out. Almost a few of them will bow and go because of their relationship with the National Assembly. But let's wrap this now. What are your what would you like to give out to those whose name is not going to be a bed of roses? The nation needs a whole lot of hard worker at this point. Is there anyone you like to give them? You've been in that corridor before.
I think with the experience one coming on board, some of the former governors, former ministers, serving former senators, I think they know the task ahead of them. And with the task ahead of them, with the experience they have, I don't want to believe that they will sack in their responsibility. We know the agenda before Bola Ahmed Tinubu in terms of fixing this country. We know some of the crises that are bringing, you have just mentioned it, the labor, the various labor disputes, the resident doctor, the TUC, the NLC.
In fact, more than any minister now, Nigeria needs the labor minister.
So I think I'm not envious of them because, but again, I believe in their capacity. I believe in their sincerity, and I believe they will give this man the best, and they will give the nation the best in terms of trying to. It's not something they have to go and sleep. And my plea to Mr. President is to do everything possible in them assessing him from time to time. That is key. Yes, we have the Constitution 148 subset 2 said, yes, there must be regular meeting. There must be every weekly meeting. But beyond meeting, we are undergoing serious crises. Monetary challenges are there, insecurities are there. So I want to believe that this set of ministers that are coming on, ministerial nominees that are coming on board, they know what it takes. Secondly, I want to believe that in the expected list, the 11 we're expecting, I want to believe from the reaction, from the feedback coming from the environment to the system, Mr. Bola Tinubu will now know, yes, if Nigeria has said this, okay, yes, let me see what I can replicate this. If they are saying this one is not okay, let me see how I can really beef up the team so that we have a crack team. But sincerely yours, I do not envy them. There are a lot of things ahead of them, and they must ready to really sit down and do the work.
All right. Kaudi, give us your final thought on this one, the expectations.
The expectations are huge. You know, the things are really. If the president inherited a bad situation, it's gone from bad to worse, and this team needs to kick the ball. They just need to actually now take pressure off the president and start delivering in the different sectors. Power. The finance minister must lead. You know, we need to know our finance minister immediately. You know, so that they can ease that pressure and we can have a proper direction between the finance ministry. And it's not just the ministers. You know, we have an acting CBN governor, the EFCC chairman is substantive. You know, a lot of these agencies need to have people in place because Nigerians need this government to start delivering. You know, there's no excuse. This is not the days of 19 years of PDP. You know, it's an APC government inheriting from another APC government, and people need to start feeling the ease in those pains.
Thank you so much indeed, gentlemen. Prof, thank you so much for the insight that you have given and the benefit of your experience.
National Assembly, we're here to work with them.
Thank you. Yeah, we hope so. And in your own capacity too, we do hope that we get Nigeria working. Yeah. Maybe tomorrow, we will try to look at the legality of what the president has done. He's the president in breach. I think I need to talk to a very experienced lawyer to break this down. Has the president done, in part, his obligation to the law? Well, these are some other angles. But thank you so much indeed, Prof. Caudi, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for your time on the program.